for coming in and getting ready for our update on the trip to El Salvador, which got pushed from a few weeks ago, but nonetheless, here we go. If we can, do we have our, we do, they're here. Okay, so we're gonna get started. And I have got just a few questions to ask these folks. But before we do that, I wanted to we'll have this scrolling in the background. We won't refer to it at all. It'll just kind of be there so you can see what we did. But it basically boiled down to, we went to El Salvador and drove a fancy bus 3 hours north to near the border with El Salvador, Guatemala, and Honduras. Most of the mission dealt with visiting several of the churches in that area and doing home visits with those churches. They were either evangelistic home visits or ones to do like somebody who had kind of disconnected to the church to bring them back. There's actually a couple of cool stories related to those that if Dylan doesn't share one of them, then I'll steal it, but I'll let him. We taught at the Christian school. We did VBSs at various public schools in the area. The ladies participated in a ladies' day at a local, one of the local churches. The guys helped patch a roof at the local Christian school. This is the first time I've ever used concrete as a roofing material. It was unpleasant. We bucketed it up like a fire assembly line kind of thing. It was very unpleasant. And I think that was the basic gist of the things. You'll see the pictures as we move along. But here we go. What was my first question? Do y'all remember? Okay. All right. First question was, tell about a meaningful experience that you had while in El Salvador.
Well, there were a lot of meaningful experiences. Mine is kind of an umbrella experience. I really enjoyed going on the home visits. Going on the home visits was great because before going, I prayed that God would put me outside my comfort zone and remind me how blessed I am. It's really obvious how blessed we are here, but seeing how other people are living their lives just kind of emphasizes that. And so going on these home visits and talking to people about not just their struggles, but what they viewed as their blessings. One of the home visits we went on, we went on visits to people that attended the congregations there, but had not been in a while. And so the reasons that they weren't attending were very interesting to me. One of them was an older couple that was caring for their disabled grandson. And the reason they hadn't been was because it was so hot out and he couldn't physically make the trek. And I thought, that's not the reason we don't attend church. And so the fact that they weren't going because they were just truly not able to get there. But then they were recalling all of the blessings. The blessing for this family was that the grandpa was out catching fish, fell in the river, got swept away, and thought he was going to die, but God sent a root for him to grab a hold of so that he could crawl up and get home and take care of his family. Like, that was your blessing for the week? Like, that sounds horrible. And so just that major shift in mindset. Another house that we went to visit was a woman that hadn't been to church in a while, and when we got there, she had this huge scrape down her leg that was terribly infected because she had fallen down the stairs trying to get to church. And so I was so grateful that we were there and that Grace was there so we could get her the medical attention she needed, and we were notified after we left that her leg was healing really well and she had made it back to church. But she was using that story as an example of how blessed she was that she didn't break her leg. And so I was really in awe of the way that they had so little, but were so grateful for God's blessings in protecting them. And also really encouraged by the reasons that they weren't coming were nothing compared to the reasons that sometimes we have for not coming and attending things.
I think, and I'll try to be brief because there's a lot to talk about, but one experience I can think of in particular, we were with, so we had translators with us, obviously, because you can't function there without, someone to translate for you. And there was a couple of guys that came with us that are preachers at, Spanish speaking churches here in the U.S. One from Kansas City, and his name's Leo, and he's in a few of these pictures. But Leo came down there, and obviously, he's really the only one out of our whole group that could preach. And as we went from church to church, yeah, in Spanish. Yeah. Yeah, well, he's the only one that could speak English and also teach at the same time. So Leo came down with us. Thank you for that. And appreciate it. Yeah, thanks. So Leo came down there with us, and we got to know him a little bit. He kept preaching. We'd go the first night, and he preached at this church. We're talking like a Monday night, right? And so every single night of the week, and then Leo's teaching again, and Leo's teaching again at this church. And he's not saying the same thing. I can kind of piece that together. And finally, I think it was Wednesday, and we sat down and we were playing a game or something at the place we were staying at night. I said, Leo, how many lessons are you supposed to teach while we're here? We're on number 4. And I think he had prepared 12 sermons. He preached 12 times while we were there. It was just amazing to watch. And every single time there's just responses and responses and responses from the people there, and that he could come down and do that. It's exhausting to teach, to write that many lessons and go down and do that. And then to watch the response of the people, to have somebody who cares enough to come and do that there's a group of, 40 or 50 people showing up at the church building on a Tuesday night at a not normal meeting time just because there's someone there to preach that's not from that town. It was really cool to watch just the response of the people when he shared, the gospel and the accountability I think that they have different than us, like the home visits that she talked about. When we go, it was not always comfortable what makes us squirm, as they, are telling these people that they need to, act differently and do differently, and, almost re-evangelizing them to come back. And we would be so embarrassed to do that. If somebody that we feel like has kind of fallen away or whatever, isn't coming to church anymore, and have you just noticed has fallen away, it would be very, very uncomfortable to go to their house and tell them that they need to get their life right. You're probably not going to show up and knock on their door unannounced, come in their house and preach the gospel at them, right? That's just kind of beyond our thought process. But it was so cool to watch them be that passionate about Christ and about these people and how much they care for them and want what's best for them, that they would go and do that. I think they go on home visits all the time. I don't think that's unique to when just we were there. So those are some meaningful experiences I think I had while I was there.
I would say for sure most of the home visits, or all of the home visits rather, were really impactful, and the 2 that Ashley mentioned were the 2 that were really coming to mind for me when I thought about this question. One of the other things though was there was a little girl named Valentina, and she and I just really hit it off. I met her one of the first days when we were playing the water sports. And so throughout the week, she went to the school that we did a lot of things at, and she also went to church over there as well. So I was repeatedly seeing her throughout the week, and I think that was probably the most impactful thing for me, just getting to spend time with her and get to talk to her. She knew a little bit of English, and it was really sweet how hard she was trying to make us be able to communicate. And then she was also trying to teach me some Spanish, and she was taking me around and showing me her classroom and her different friends, and just parts of where we were that were special to her. So I think looking back, the home visits were a big thing that it will be, I won't forget for sure. It was very meaningful and very special to hear everybody's stories, and just realize, get a good example of how different life is, really, honestly, I mean, than it is for us here. And then also Valentina, and my buddy, I'll think about her for sure, so. Yeah, there she is.
That's our Victoria.
Like the rest of them, the home visits for sure. The very first home visit I went on, there was a lady who had an autistic daughter, and she hasn't been to church in a while. So Brother Carlos kind of put me on the spot saying, how can you encourage this person? So we had translators there, and I just told her that, you know, there are people there who love you, and we want you to come back when you can. But she was really struggling because she was sick for a while, and having an autistic daughter is kind of heartbreaking to hear, and then she started crying. So I'm not going to say I cried. I did, but but yeah, it was very, very impactful. Then the other house visit we went on, this man had Parkinson's disease, and he said before he got sick, he was very faithful, but you know, his disease kept him from doing a lot of things. And I'm going to steal from Grace. There's this little boy named Irvin. There he is right there. We actually met at the field day, even though he hit me with a water balloon. And I got him back, but he wanted me to play soccer. He wanted me to come play soccer with him, and I told him I'll play later. I may have lied because I don't like soccer, but I didn't lie. I eventually played. But the next day, I went to his school, and he said, Marcos, Marcos. I'm like, hi. So I got to get to know him a little bit. He's in the 7th grade. He told me his mother makes pupusas, which I love, by the way, new food. Knowing me, I'm very picky, so love pupusas. So before we left to go back to the hotel, he told me in Spanish, see you next year. I'm like, oh, okay. But yeah, that's my little buddy. And just getting to know him and his friends was really impactful to me.
Something meaningful to me was just being able to go back. I had gone when I was in high school, so it's been a while since I've been back. And also getting to travel with Jeff again, because we went when he was my youth minister. So coming back years later with him and getting to see all the familiar faces, and my friend Candy was there, and she went through La Palma Christian School and was supported by some of the sponsors to go through university as well. And so seeing her completed college and working and getting to hear from her and just sit down and chat with her was really impactful, and really nice to just be able to actually hug her and, you know, say I'm so proud of you and catch up on all the things was really exciting for me.
Yeah, Corey, I'll let you take that one if you want to talk about that one. Okay, so the one that Corey was referring to earlier was it was a home visit, and it was we had one lady that was baptized this year, and the lady was part of our home visit that we went to, and that was Carlos right there. Yeah, so Carlos is a very great enthusiastic gentleman, and he we were going through the Bible, we were going through all these verses, and he was to the point of just tears, like talking to this woman and saying how she needs to come back and how she needs to rededicate her life back to Christ. And then we just kept going on and on and on, and we were like, man, this is getting intense. and I this is a very short version, and that's why Corey, you can also further explain it as well if you'd like. But just like the heart that he had, and just like how much effort he was putting into trying to bring her to Christ, to be baptized, and for her to show up that night, because we had a church service that night, and for her to show up that same night, because at first we didn't see her, she wasn't there, so we were like, okay, you know, you don't get them all. And then, but whenever she showed back up, it was just the best feeling that I could have imagined, like having been part of that conversation. So that was probably the most meaningful for me.
I've been several times, and it's been a while since I've been. But there's so many things, and just to find one little moment is really hard. For me, it really is kind of the whole week, and it's the whole experience. So what I mean by that is that, so Abigail and I have been there before, but no one else had. But to watch from the time we get off the plane and we take this bus ride, which is awful, okay? You can try to be joyous as much as you want to, but boy, it's rough by the time you get there. Isn't it, Hayden? Yeah. And, but to watch from that moment, whenever we get everything unloaded and we start to get to know the folks that we're with, because we were with people from Springfield and from Kansas City and from Houston and Muskogee, and there's all kinds of people. And by the end of the week, to see a relationship and a group form, that those relationships are going to last for a long time. And the only thing that they have in common is this going to share Jesus with somebody else. And the time that you're there to listen and do the best you can to listen to Leo and try to understand what it is he's saying before we had an interpreter that would interpret for us. But to watch and to be in a little bitty room for a worship service in Seattle that is probably smaller than my office if you put both of them together. I mean, you know, it's had chairs all stacked in there. And just looking around at the people and looking around at the joy that they have and the way that they are so grateful for the things that they have and grateful that we're there and grateful to be part of this. The passage that continually comes to mind every time that I go is that one from Revelation 7, is where I look and there are people from every tribe and nation and tongue. And the thing that we have in common is Jesus, and that's enough to bring us all together.
I have another one, so I'll just take the mic. So this one is one I am really pretty ashamed of, and so I think it's why I wanted to share it, because I think it would be good for everybody. That home visit that they talk about, where the woman was baptized, none of us wanted to go. It was the day before we were about to leave. We were like, blah, I just want to pack my suitcase. I want to take a nap. Like, please, like, I'm done. And so we were like it was kind of like the woman that was in charge, she was, someone has to go, you know, so who's it going to be? And I was like, fine, I'll go. But I didn't want to. I had terrible attitude. And so Corey was like, you stay, you know, get some rest, pack, I'll go. And so the point that I'm making is when she came to church that night and wanted to be baptized, I thought my selfishness almost cost her salvation. And I was so ashamed and so grateful for the examples that went anyway. And so just don't take any opportunity for granted.
Thanks. I didn't want to go to that either. I went to accompany Dylan. He was the only willing one out of us to do it. But a couple of, I was interested in, as a minister, watching the ministers that are there or who had come. And I found them intriguing, Carlos in particular, just because we would be having a Bible study, the one Dylan and I were accompanied him to. He'd be having a Bible study, and he would range in emotion, like genuine emotion. You could see his eyes get beet red, and he would cry in explaining the text, and he would laugh. He just went the whole gamut. It was like, man, this guy, he hasn't lost the thrill of the gospel at all, and it was incredible. The other one was Leo, and if you've been in this area long enough, you will remember Leo because he used to be the Hispanic minister at Southside Church of Christ in Rogers. He's a wonderful man that I enjoyed following around. He was great. And the two examples from those guys were, I shared Carlos's, but Leo, we had gone on a home visit with Leo and us in the Fulkersons. There's Leo in the middle bottom. And at the beginning of the home visit, we had gone to see Grandpa, and Grandpa was nowhere to be found, but granddaughter from Ohio was there. And so we talked to her for a while, and apparently Grandpa was somewhere in the house and didn't really want to come out. Eventually he did circle his way in, and Leo started talking to him. They were talking to the granddaughter from Ohio. She knew English, and Leo started talking to the grandpa, and I was acting like I was listening, but I know no Spanish. I can ask, where's the bathroom? And not well. But so I was trying to act engaged in what Leo was talking to the grandpa about. And he was very standoffish, did not want to come out to start, and he was just, there's a wall there. And Leo started talking to him, and eventually you just watch this man kind of relax. And then the conversation got intense between the two of them. And it looked like it was making progress, and I didn't know what was going on, but I knew something was going on. And afterward, I asked Leo on the walk out, I was like, what'd you say to him? And he told me, he shared a story. He said, well, he told me that he had been running away from God. And he said, well, you can run all you want, but God's got you in his crosshairs, right? You can come or not come, but God knows knows what's going on and knows how your life is going. And he'd use some specific things about the man's life, and kind of reappropriated those things to share the gospel with him. And then in the one where the lady was baptized, we pull up in Carlos's car outside this person's house, and Carlos says, okay, to the Americans in the car, he says, we're going to be studying the rich man and Lazarus, so have your answers ready. And we were like, what? Like, that's not an easy text, right? It's not easy at all. And so we went in, and Carlos would ask a question, and our translator would translate, and he would just go down a line of Americans. We're like, we don't know where you're going. Like, there are some options on interpreting this text, right? And I didn't want to go off left field and get, too into the weeds if that wasn't what he was wanting to do. And so we kind of fumbled our way through it. And he started to use our own lives in that, and what if your kids were on one side of the gulf in the story of rich man and Lazarus, and you were on the other, and all of this kind of stuff, and putting us into the story, and then it gets bad intense, right? And he did this with the lady as well, and it just, those two situations made me think, man, these people do not waste anything to be able to share the gospel. Right? Every personal situation, every health issue. Grandpa had pancreatic cancer. Every cultural or personal kind of situation that was going on that they could use, they did. And it just was a reminder of we should never waste an opportunity to reappropriate whatever the culture or our own life gives us, or the lives of those around us. We should never waste any of those things that were given to reappropriate them as an opportunity to share the gospel. So that was mine for that question. And the next is also, how did you see God moving while you were there?
I'll let other people talk this time.
Okay. I think it would have been hard to not see God moving there. But I mean, I'll give a couple examples. I think the school is a really amazing thing going on down there. We haven't talked a whole lot about that other than that we put a roof on it and poured a lot of concrete. But Lanera from Kansas City, she's in a few of these pictures as well. She is kind of the stateside representative for that school. So something to know about La Palma. It's really not close to anything or anywhere other than the border of a few countries. And there's not a lot of industry there because it's in the mountains and it's hard to get there and get stuff in and out. And so the opportunity for people to have gainful employment is very small. I mean, just the poverty level there is really, really high because and it's not necessarily because the people don't want to work, but it's just, there's not a lot to be had, right? I mean, imagine like, for example, a town that has a big plant of some sort, whether it's a paper plant or, chicken plant or whatever, and the plant closes, the poverty level skyrockets, right? And so there's not any of that in that town. And so what can we do to offer these kids an opportunity to for lack of a better term, get out, right? Like offer them a way to add value to the world so they can provide for their family and not live in poverty always. And that school was established as a means to do that, right? Like to educate these kids, give them a place where they have meals, they're provided with clothes and uniforms, and they're educated in a way that they can go somewhere and, have a job and employment and, do that for their family. And I think that to not see God working in that place would be really hard. You go in there and the things that they're able to accomplish in a place like La Palma in that school is incredible. And what did she say it is, like $50 a month to sponsor a kid in that school? Yeah. So you can pay $50 a month to send a kid to school, right? You can send one kid to school for $50 a month at a private school where they're fed and they're clothed and they're educated. And everybody in this room has an opportunity to sponsor those kids. That's not you don't have to necessarily do that as a church body. You individually can sponsor a kid and give them an opportunity to have an education and a safe place to go during the day, because we did some work in the public schools also, and it's a pretty rough place. I'll spare you the details, but it's pretty gruesome. And, one teacher and a bunch of kids, and it's gross. And this school that they've built down there is a nice place, and it's gated and it's safe. They have the only computer lab, I think, like that in La Palma. So kids can learn how to use the internet and different programs on the computer and stuff, and they're educated all the way. What grade does it go through, Jeff? 10th grade. And so that's, to me, I saw God moving a lot in that, and just offering these kids a way to have a better life where they don't have to live, some of their parents and people before them in a place where there's just not opportunity. And just, to keep kids safe and fed and healthy, and a place where we can help support them. You can't look at that and act like their life's not better because that school is there. And it's people here in the U.S. that support those kids, that offer them a chance to do that. So if you have a heart to do that, we would love to show you a way to help. $50 a month is a pretty small amount to send one kid to school. And offer them a chance to have an education. And they're so very grateful and attentive and want to be there. It's not like our kids here that you can't beg to pay attention for an hour. They want to be there, and they're engaged. And just watching them and the way they interact with the teachers was incredible too. They listen, and they're, for hours, and they're, when we were doing VBS, it wasn't like kids are running around all over the place, causing a problem. They're sitting down and listening, and that was really cool to watch too. But I need to stop.
One of the big things that comes to mind for me, again, I would say agree with what everybody else has said, and that really just the entire time you're there, it's very evident to see how just how excited people are about sharing the gospel. It's a very different feel. There's a lot more urgency, at least it felt like that to me. So, but one thing that comes to mind is the Ladies' Day that we did, and they did not have a translator there for us. So honestly, we were there for like 4 hours, and I really couldn't understand anything that was going on the entire time, but there was so many ladies there. There was, how was it 200? Comes to mind. And so throughout the whole time, we were sitting and participating as much as we could, but at the end of the service, they got up and did have a translator and were telling us where everybody that had come was from. And there were people from other countries that had come just for the Ladies' Day. Us included, but, that had driven and taken buses and gone through, and just going to La Palma from most places in El Salvador takes quite a while, but there had been ladies that had traveled for hours and hours to get there, to be there for this one day, half a day service. And that was very impactful to me, because, it really makes you think, would I be willing to, jump through so many hoops? And it's so much more of a burden for them to make it to something like that than it is for me to make it to something that happens here at church that's so accessible for me. And yet sometimes I think, am I that willing to go and do something that is so much easier for me than it was for them to do, if that makes sense. So that I've really thought about that quite a bit, of just how excited and energetic they are about the gospel, and how that makes them so willing to do things that are really inconvenient, if not difficult, arguably. So, anyways.
We've already touched on it, but this is my first time going to El Salvador. And one of the biggest things we've already talked about was the witnessing the baptism. I think her name was Sister Luz. I know it begins with an L, but getting to see that was very impactful to me, because she wanted to be baptized after a church service, which I think was great. But the other thing is just going to the schools. The very first school we went to, the kids were so full of life and energetic. They were really happy to see us, and it kind of made my heart smile a little bit, because I don't like, anyway, so I'm not used to that, but being around the kids was very, very impactful. So definitely I would probably go back next year, because the kids, we're complete strangers, but they will love on you as if they've known you for years. And getting to see them interact with the teachers, like Dave said, and they're so well-mannered, very respectful, willing to listen. It was great. I can't say I was a kid who listened, was respectful, but getting to see that was really impactful. And I really saw God moving with us, just being there and them happy to see us. It was great.
I would agree with him that just seeing God work through us and also through them to us, because obviously when you go to a different country and you're trying to evangelize to them, you always think or I guess the idea would be that hopefully you're showing God to them, but in return, really, they're showing us so much more and showing us this, I don't know, how we have so many things and yet they don't have very many things, but they can just show us so much love and joy and mercy at times and grace. And if we mess up a Spanish word and we say something else, then they laugh it off and they're like, oh, you're just so, they just have a lot of grace for us. And it was just nice to see, through the kids and adults, just how much they love us and were excited for us to be there. And it was just an encouragement to be there with them, even if we couldn't fully conversate with each person. So seeing God through the people.
I think the biggest way I saw God working there was also everything that everyone has said, but also showing us the opportunity that's there for us. Because as Hayden said, the school only goes to 10th grade, and they also do a 12-year school. And so between 11th and 12th grade, there's a lot of kids that drop off, because they also have a college program where I think it's $150, $125 a month. That will get a kid through school and will get them into a good career. But between 10th grade and getting into college, they then have to go through 2 years of public school, and then there's a huge drop off between 10th and college. So, and part of that reason, and okay. So long term, the end goal is that they are wanting to move and to build a new school, because right now they're just landlocked. There's just kids on top of kids. Yeah, and they rent it. They don't even own it. So they're making all these payments, making all these improvements for something that they don't even own. And so the goal is to buy land and to build a school that they own, and that they can have kids from whenever they start, I guess for kindergarten, all the way till 12th grade. And so I know that's a very big aspiration, but I think it's one that we could definitely heavily contribute to, and just have a pipeline of Christian kids going into universities, and then that can then expand into having a university like a student-led organization from those kids from that school going into college, and it can just have like an avalanche effect and that's just the way that I can foresee it. So I think that's probably the biggest way that I saw God working through.
Yeah, I would echo that. Opportunities, right, and connections. So there's a lady that teaches at Republic that got together all of the material for Vacation Bible School stuff that was all going to be done. What happened in the course of the week was, and I don't even look over there because I don't know what kind of look she's going to be giving me, but that Ashley had said, hey, we're in on that next year, right? Connections. We got teachers that are connected. We have Donnie Ellis, who's one of the first people I talked to about this place. His daughter has gone forever, and she runs the medical mission that Grace is planning and Hayden are planning to go to in March, right? And same with Abigail and Dylan. And just the way that God brings these folks together and the opportunities that get placed in front of us are really, really amazing. I know he's mentioned the school. I met Lynera a long time ago on one of the trips down there, and she has kind of stepped in and it's the major fundraiser for the school, really oversees that work a lot, and she and I got to visit quite a bit about that. They've got they've got quite a few funds set and a spot that they believe they have found. And I don't know, I'm not trying to pitch this, but I'm not trying to pitch it either, right? Is that, maybe there's an opportunity there as well to take these kids all the way through 12th grade, then all the way into through university. Abigail mentioned Candy. Candy went through the university program and is now, she was actually in the States for a little bit. She's back in La Palma, works in La Palma as in medical translation. Is that right? But that's just one of those things of, someone has taken enough interest in her to do this. She's now back there, right? Helping the next generation. Another young lady, I call her a little girl, she's not anymore, Jessica, who is in the university program and is ready to start her student teaching because she wants to teach back down there, right? And that cycle. And just the way that God has put those things together, and I think even, we can talk about this, I don't really want to right now, but we can talk about it later if you want to. Even my going on this particular trip was something that I think God worked, okay? Because Presley was supposed to go, and I ended up going. So all kinds of things happen. And I think he does this a lot if we'll just pay attention, right? Ashley, you want to get?
No.
Related to that, you can see the programs in the brochures that Presley handed out, but there's 3 sort of sponsorship things going on related to the La Palma mission, and they are sponsoring a kid through the Christian school, sponsoring a kid through college, and the nutrition program. I don't remember what it's called. I don't think it's called the nutrition program. Do it? The PK program, which is, they just feed the kids. You could take, and we met some, Candy and Jessica are a couple of examples of this. You could take any of the kids who went through both of these, or all 3 of these programs. Candy and Jessica both went through all 3 of the programs. There are others. Jeff has been following Naomi. She will be an example of this as well. She's in early high school-ish. She's in the 9th grade. You could take any of these kids who, and in fact, the Grisham sponsored that family for a while. Y'all may still, I don't know. But you could take any of these kids who have been through these 3 programs and line them up against any other El Salvadorian 20-something, and you can tell a difference. Physically, you can see that these people lived a different life. It's on their face, literally. Food scarcity is a problem there as well. So just you can tell physically, never mind what has gone on different spiritually for them. We're talking about creating generational change, right? Spiritually, physically, and all of the rest. Like they're doing a great thing. And so the last question is why you should go. We're going to have to go lightning round on it, so keep it short. But you should go because you're never, I think, closer to heaven than whenever you're standing in a room with faces that don't look like yours. We are told in Revelation that heaven looks like every tongue, tribe, people, and nation. And I think that's why these things are so impactful, right? Is because we're a little bit closer to heaven on earth, right? Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. And so this is not a young adult trip. This is not a youth trip. This is a congregational trip. And it happens again the first week of June. So first Saturday of June is the tentative leave date. So pencil that in.
Seems like a great place to stop to me.
I'm going to ask Dylan to pray us out then.
Please bow. Dear God, thank you so much for this day and for all the blessings that you've given us. Thank you for giving this group the opportunity to go to La Palma and to do work down there in your name, but also to see the work that has already been done and is still going on that is in your name. Thank you for allowing us to witness that and to be a part of that, and to be able to come back and to share the good news that we have witnessed. And please encourage those who are on the fence about going to this trip. It is a life-changing experience, and it's one of the best ways to see you in action. And thank you for sending your Son to die on the cross for our sins, and it's in His name that I pray. Amen.